We've been telling girls since that you can be anything you want to be, and you can do anything that you want. And so we have seen a narrowing of the gap, I think, in terms of sex segregation in occupations in the United States. And we see women now performing occupational roles that were the exclusive domain of men in the past. Of course, there are still some gendered occupations like people who are on the battlefield in Iraq, for example, that are still extremely gendered, and we find some gender occupational segregation in the United States today. But women have made tremendous advances in fields that used to be more or less exclusively the domain of men. In the academy, in medicine, in law, in politics. And Hillary Clinton, for example, has just nearly broken what she claimed was the ultimate glass ceiling, that of possibly becoming the President of the United States. And I think that now, in a way, unlike any time in the past, girls across the country will indeed think that this is entirely possible for them to achieve this, to aspire to the highest, the most prestigious, and most honorable professions and positions in our society. Of course, the difference, the extent to which women are actually able to achieve economic parity with men, or occupational parity with men, particularly in occupations which have traditionally been gender segregated, is an empirical question, and we do know that there are still some great differences. Of course, we still also have these notions of women's work, and the extent to which men feel free to enter occupations that may have been, that have traditionally been seen as more or less the domain of women. Do we see an increase in the number of men, for example, who are entering elementary education as a profession, or who feel that they can be preschool workers or nurses? This is an empirical question, and I'm not aware of the latest data on this. It would have been helpful for me to have looked that up before we had conducted this interview. But I think that there are still, the United States is still very much occupationally segregated in many of these domains. And as far as economic parity is concerned, we still know that women, on average, for similar tasks, similar occupational roles, earn less than men. So we have a way to go as far as economic equality and as far as workforce parity is concerned, I think. At the heart of the women's movement is an idea of social justice and equality, and the idea that all persons are born equal, and that all people, regardless of their socioeconomic background or their gender or their race or their ethnicity, should have equal opportunities, should be treated equally in our society, should be equal before the law, for example. These are some of the ideals of the enlightenment of liberal democracy, which are embodied in our national documents like the Declaration of Independence, and which have subsequently become embodied in international documents through the United Nations, for example, and international efforts to argue for equal rights for men and women. And of course, we have a long way to go on the international stage for this to still come about. But I have no doubt that nations around the world are indeed looking to the United States as an example to lead on this issue. And since the United States has legally, we've codified notions of equality between men and women in our laws. Congress has acted to pass Title IX, for example, and we have made great strides as far as achieving equitable treatment for men and women in our society. And I think this has had a tremendous impact on other nations in the world. And not the least of which is our impact on international agencies such as the United Nations, because the United States does play a very major role in the formation of policy documents and international declarations of human rights and so forth, which are being used to eliminate or to in an attempt to help eliminate gross disparities in other countries between men and women.